We are here with wellnessheroes.tv. We stand for truth, truth and wellness. And we are blessed to have an interview here with Shawn Buckley, who's been a buzz among the crowd, among Canadians, and what he stands for, excuse me, as a lawyer. And Shawn, why don't you introduce yourself to the folks out there that don't know what you stand for and what you're striving to. You had a well-attended presentation here today, and you can basically tell us what you stand for and talk a bit about your career path, why you got there.
Certainly. So basically what I'm trying to accomplish is the Government of Canada is in the process right now of taking away the majority of natural health products that people have been relying on for health. And in my opinion, it's extremely dangerous to take things that people rely on for their health away. So we're fighting to get just basically a fair and reasonable regulatory environment that respects the individual's right to choose how they're going to treat themselves when they face a health crisis. And how I got involved in this is, actually I ended up acting for Health Canada against a herbalist. Wow. So there was a herbalist that Health Canada did not like, and they seized herbs he was importing from the United States. These herbs were perfectly legal to own, but this gentleman was making a product that they didn't like, and so he sued Health Canada to get the products back, and Health Canada hired the law firm I was at to defend them. I got the file.
Are you able to tell us the names of the firms, or you prefer not to?
Well, back then the firm was called Gillespie Renkema Burke,
Okay.
and the herbalist was a Mr. Jim Strauss. He's now deceased.
Okay.
Now, I go to court and I have his thing thrown out of court, but him and I got along really well. So not long after, the province charged him with practicing medicine without a license, and so he hired me to defend him. Because in BC, I imagine it's the same in every province, the act that gives doctors their monopoly to practice medicine defines what the practice of medicine is, and it's defined quite broadly to include health claims. And he was claiming that he could treat heart disease with his Strauss heart drops. So he hires me to defend him, and I'm trying to figure out, well, how on earth am I going to defend him? Because the Act says only doctors can practice medicine. The practice of medicine includes making health claims, and he was making health claims. I mean, he drove around in a white van with big, bright red letters saying, "We cure heart disease." And in fact, I was worried if I throw him on the stand, he would look at the judge. Most of the judges in Kamloops back then, they were older guys, and they get the crow's feet on the ears, which is a sign of poor circulation. And I could see my client looking up at the judge and saying, "Your Honor, you have heart disease, you need my heart drops." I mean, that's what type of guy he was. So I had to come up with a different way. And I actually decided, well, let's attack the law itself. Because we have a Charter of Rights and Freedoms that says we have freedom of expression. And yet we have this act that says you can't make any health claim, even truthful health claims. I saw a conflict, so I let the government know I was going to ask the court to strike down that part of the act, and I started preparing. And so I wanted to show the court, is he telling the truth? So I go to his herb shop and I ask Jim, is there any evidence we have that your heart drops work, that you're telling the truth? And without batting an eye, he just, oh yeah, hang on a sec. He goes in the back of his shop, he starts bringing me up boxes. There were 4 or 5 boxes filled with letters that people had just written in. He wasn't asking people to write letters. I take them back to the office. I'm obligated to read them all, like thousands of letters, but they were all the same. It's like I had heart disease, I was sick, I was dying, I took your heart drops, I got well. God bless you type thing. Now, I can't use those as evidence, that's pure hearsay, but I can call the authors of those letters. So I start phoning these people, and it was like a witness field day.
Can I just say something?
Sure.
This reminds me of, Miracle on something street, the famous Christmas tale, where they prove Santa Claus exists by all the mail showing up in court, which is just a tangent, but it's so unbelievable that you had all this authentic mail, and basically saying, yeah, I was cured, and you had to then call these individual people, authors of letters, and tell us how that went.
Yeah, so what I did is I narrowed it down. On the day of trial, I had 5 middle-class professionals, which I just chose because judges find middle-class professionals more credible than anyone else. And all of them had had serious heart disease. All of them had had at least one open heart bypass surgery. A couple of them had had two. They'd all continued to have heart disease because the reason why their arteries were clogging was not being addressed.
Mm-hmm.
They were all being told by the medical profession they needed another open heart bypass surgery to survive, and here's where they differed. Some of them had had so many complications from the surgery, they were not willing to go through it again. Because, I mean, it would only buy them another year or two anyway. They'd rather just die. And the rest of them, the doctors weren't willing to put them through it because they were so weak they weren't likely to survive the surgery. So ethically, the doctors couldn't do the surgery. You can't do surgery if you predict the patient won't survive.
Right.
So for all of these witnesses, the mainstream medical system was now a death sentence. None of them had been into alternative health. They all turned to the natural health community. They all come across these heart drops. They all start taking them. They all get well. They all go back to work. None of them had been able to work. Wow. And so it was just...
How big a number of people is this? I mean, as a professional engineer licensed in Ontario, which I am, we look at statistics, and so does Big Pharma, and so does the government, and so do experts like Don Tapscott, which we'll talk about a little later. But basically, how big of a pool of people, what are the numbers here that we're saying these heart drops are really working?
Well, as far as a percentage of the population, I don't know, and I can't even tell you from a percentage of the people who took the heart drops. But I can tell you, I had thousands of people. I had thousands of letters from people who had written in. And here's where I did the conversion experience. It was kind of my road to Damascus experience, because when I was acting against this herbalist to take that product off the market, I fully bought into our kind of mainstream understanding that, you know, you go to the allopathic doctor if you're sick, and the idea that you could allow some rogue herbalist to sell an unapproved product just seemed to me to be absolutely irresponsible. And a lot of people have that feeling. They had no idea, and I had no idea. Well, none of these products were licensed because you couldn't get through. The licensing process was designed for chemical pharmaceuticals. The whole industry was technically illegal, so who cared? There's never been a death in Canadian history caused by a natural health product. Let's go back to 1867. I mean, 142 years, or 44 years now, right? There's never a documented death we can point to caused by a natural health product. So I was in this paradigm, though. Can you imagine allowing a rogue herbalist to sell an unapproved product? Well, after I had prepared for that trial, my belief system was completely different. Now the danger was removing that product. Right. I was firmly convinced. In fact, if you had removed that product at that time, I could have given you the names and phone numbers and addresses of thousands of people whose lives would have been dramatically impacted, many of who would have died. So wow. It was life and death.
Wow.
I mean, in the True Hope case, another client I had, I mean, I firmly believe Health Canada caused people to commit suicide when they took this product away for a short period of time, because the Canadian Mental Health Association, the Alberta branch, their executive director started holding press conferences blaming Health Canada for suicides. The executive director testified in court. He went to one of the funerals. He was so...
What's the name of that individual? That was...
Ron Lajeunesse.
Okay.
He used to be the executive director of the Canadian Mental Health Association in Alberta. He also had designed Alberta's mental health programs and ran them. He's a very heavy hitter. And if you Google him, you'll run across some of the news stories on it. It's no secret.
He stood for?
Well, the concern they had is the Canadian Mental Health Association had looked into eMpower Plus, concluded it was helping a lot of their members, and you cannot take an effective treatment for serious mental illness away without having people hospitalized or commit suicide. And he warned Health Canada and the Minister of Health before the suicides, and then he publicly blamed them after the suicides. I'm just citing it as another example of another natural health product.
And the product is eMpower
eMpower Plus.
Okay, I've heard of this directly.
Which is...
Can I just chip in? So, I've heard of, I'm affiliated with another company in not-for-profit in the mental health space. It's a peer support. It's called MIPSO, Mental Health Peer Support Organization, MIPSO.org. One of our members was educating me personally through detailed emails on the effectiveness of EM Power Plus for her particular situation, which is confidential. However, I'm aware of this product, so I'm amazed that this has come full circle to this interview, and I just found out about this information a week ago.
Right. Well, I mean, it's interesting. They were charged for selling without a drug identification number. They were acquitted because the criminal court said if they had listened to Health Canada, people would have died. So it was necessary for them to defy Health Canada. And there's now 14 published peer-reviewed publications on it. But another interesting thing about that product is the Faculty of Medicine at the University of Calgary ran 2 case series. The results were so staggering. The university goes to the Alberta government. This isn't the company. This is the Faculty of Medicine at the University of Calgary. They go to the Alberta government and they say, we've never seen results like this. You need to give us taxpayers' money for a double-blind clinical trial. The Science Foundation of the Alberta government agrees, coughs up over roughly $500,000 for this double-blind clinical trial. Halfway through the trial, Health Canada shuts it down. Now,
why?
Well, you tell me why. I mean, it was being run by psychiatrists. It was being run by the Behavioral Research Unit. That's all they did was run clinical trials.
How do you revive this thing?
So, I mean, I think it was shut down because they were targeted, because they threatened pharmaceutical companies. That's just my personal opinion. But back to your original question, how I got involved,
2 minutes?
My point is that taking these products away causes a health risk. Have current regulations are going to take the majority of them away, and we're not taking into account the health risk.
I have to ask you a question. So you're well versed in this, and it's on the back of my press pass here. Bill C-36 that came in December 10. There's a petition, I understand, that went out that was unsuccessful, a fairly large one. If you were Prime Minister today, we're granting you that power, we're pretending, what would be the first thing you would do on this topic?
The first thing I would do is I would enact the Charter of Health Freedom, and anyone can just Google Charter of Health Freedom. It's www.charterofhealthfreedom.org. I would repeal Bill C-36 because it moves us into a police state, and I'm not exaggerating. I do play a little game now. Whenever I run across a lawyer who's actually read the act, I ask them about it, but I don't use the words police state. I just wait for it to come out of their mouth, and it comes out 100% of the time.
Excellent. Powerful answer. There's a gentleman here in Toronto, a world-renowned consultant in collaborative information exchange. His name's Don Tapscott. He's an acquaintance of mine, and we're getting to know each other better. His mantra is to open up data channels for all countries. He's working with various governments. That's been documented. He wants the data channels wide open because that allows every Canadian citizen with internet access that wants to look at solving problems can do that, and it prevents these secret it's about opening and full visibility and transparency in government. What are your thoughts on that? Would you be endorsing Don Tapscott's methodologies and his best-selling book, Wikinomics and Macroeconomics, if you were president?
Well, I mean, I haven't read the book, but we need to have open government or we can't have a liberal democracy. And it's curious, as Canada has recently been independently rated as a very closed country, despite our, Access to Information Act. It's circumvented, it's weak. The Information Commissioner can't actually force disclosure. It's a lame duck, and there's too much secrecy here. And it's curious, this Consumer Product Safety Act allows the government to issue orders taking control over private property without court supervision secretly.
Wow.
These orders are specifically exempted from publication that our Statutory Instruments Act requires.
So Shawn, how can our viewers help you? Is there any chance to resurrect a petition? I mean, this is democracy. How can we resurrect this?
Well, our immediate concern actually is the government has announced they're going to bring back Bill C-51, which would give them the same powers over food and drugs. We need to stop it. I would like all of your listeners to go to nhppa.org, so just www.nhppa.org. There's a place where you can give us your email address.
Okay.
And then you become part of our network. So we let you know what's happening, but we also put out actions alerts saying, please do this, please do that, and we provide materials to equip you to become an activist.
Who's funding you for this altruistic work that you're doing?
It's primarily actually just individuals that fund us, and we actually are calling on people to commit to $20 a month, which is about 3 specialty coffees at Starbucks, because we're absolutely starved for funding to do what we need to do.
And that makes sense. Now, as a final point for those doubting Thomases out there that say this is unsafe to revoke this bill, what would you say to them?
I would say that there is nothing more unsafe that a citizen can allow to happen than to give the government absolute discretion over things like property rights without court supervision. Pull out a dictionary and look up the definition of tyranny. Tyranny is just the ability of the government to act with absolute discretion. It's an anathema to the rule of law. It is the most dangerous thing a citizen can do. So when you're passing laws in the name of safety, which move us away from the rule of law, it's really Orwellian doublespeak. It's not safe at all. It's dangerous.
That's amazing. Thank you for your time. We're going to cut it here. This is wellnessheroes.tv. Truth in Wellness, you heard it here, and you're hearing it from Shawn Buckley, we need to help this man out, in my humble opinion. And the viewers, it's up to your opinion. Thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you very much.